Alright, so I guess this is it, my friend. The end of the line. We've been talking about Fembusters for the past, I don't know, something like 6 months at this point. Basically, ever since the release of the first trailer. And all the things we've seen, all the things that we've talked about and read, and finally, at the long last, the two of us have seen the final version of this movie.
We may not have paid for it, but we definitely seen it.
Well, we might be masochists, but we're not madmen. But basically, the point is, we finally saw the movie for ourselves, and big fucking surprise, it's complete garbage.
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, fucking hell, yeah. But, at least, the crew and Sony and Paul Fieg, they definitely made a point that women are just as capable of making a shit Adam Sandler movie, just like the men. So, congratulations, gender equality.
Hashtag equality. Oh, Christ. Wait, where do you even begin with this disaster?
Well, first of all, I have to reiterate that, again, the fact that the Ghostbusters were women was not the reason I had any contempt for this movie. And believe me, I did have contempt. You guys heard it last time. I tried to go into this movie with a completely open mind. However, after all the evidence, including the trailers and the leaked footage and, the Reddit script that was leaked by Stance 1984 and the Midnight's Edge videos and all this other information that just keeps cropping up over and over and over on the internet, including all of the shielding behind the feminist card, the sexism card that they're using to deflect any type of criticisms towards this movie. I tried to go in with an open mind, but again, after all the evidence that this Ghostbusters movie was going to be just bad in a not funny kind of way, to honestly go into the movie thinking it'll actually be good is like a Ken Ham level of denial. I mean, it's like, it's going to be bad just because of everything that we've seen, everything we've heard, everything we've experienced, and to go in there and think that honestly this is going to be a good movie or at least be a competent movie, it just couldn't happen. I could not shake that level of skepticism. Not necessarily cynicism. I was a genuine skeptic. I was like, go ahead and try to impress me, and everything fell flat. I laughed out loud with a loud "ha!" only once. Only once. Everything else, I was just sitting there going, I don't get what's going on. I just
want to say that I think that we, and I don't mean just the two of us, but I think everyone, I mean the human race in general, owe a massive token of gratitude to Stan's 1984 as well as the Midnight's Edge guys, because they fucking called it.
Yep.
They warned us. Everything that Stan's 1984 wrote about in his initial Reddit leak, it all came true.
Yep.
Every single moment, every single terrible joke, every single character inconsistency, and every single forced callback to the original movie.
Well, that's not entirely true, because there was a dancing scene that apparently was left on the cutting room floor.
Out of all the things in this movie
yes,
that could have been excised, that's the one where they thought, okay, this has gone too far, Paul.
Yeah, never mind the queefing jokes. Never mind all of the run-on joke with the fucking wontons and shit by Melissa McCarthy.
Never mind Chris Hemsworth being a complete fucking buffoon throughout the entire movie, and horribly unfunny, mind you.
Yes. You see this picture of the hot dog over the house? Well, the hot dog is floating over the house, so it implies that the house is haunted by ghosts, right?
Oh, that's nothing compared to the blatant 7-Eleven commercial that they tried to sneak in the previous image.
What do you guys think about this logo, 7-Eleven?
Gee, I wonder who sponsored this movie.
Yeah, exactly. Never mind the Pringles and Papa John's Pizza and, well, Sony in general.
Well, of course.
Oh, and Twinkies. Don't forget Twinkies.
Well, at the very least, there's some connection to the original movie there, but
there's too many connections to the original movie. I mean, it's literally like taken. It's this film honestly felt like a 4-year-old holding a DVD of Ghostbusters and shoving it in your face, being like, remember this? Hey, let's watch this. Remember this? Remember this? Remember this? Remember this? And it's like, fuck me. I mean, everything was just a reference to the original Ghostbusters. Everything.
See, but the thing is, I do remember all of that iconic stuff, and before watching the new movie, I had actually decided to revisit the original Ghostbusters movie because...
Good man.
Because it had probably been like several years since I saw it last time, and let me tell you, all throughout the almost 2-hour-long running time of that movie, I was sitting there with a smile on my face,
yes,
because revisiting that movie was like catching up with a couple of old friends that you haven't seen in a while. It's like, Harold Ramis, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, even Ernie Hudson, Annie Potts, all these characters, the Dickless guy, what's his face, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, Zool, all these memorable moments. This is a great movie. Movie could have, but that, by the way, could have also been a disaster if you know what's been going on behind the scenes and how drastically different the initial concepts, especially with Dan Aykroyd, were compared to the final product.
Yeah,
so, again,
a bunch of guys running around with like space helmets, and they have like magic wands on their hands, and they form like a seance circle around like a ghost, and that's how they trap it and like get rid of it.
Yeah,
fucking nightmare of a movie. The one of the things that made the original Ghostbusters great was Ivan Reitman, because he managed to like ground the original concept, because you know it wasn't like, you know, fancy shit. It was, the proton packs looked like they were made from fucking scrap metal. I mean, and it had such a down to earth feeling, and it grounded the entire thing. It was just, you know,
it's kind of like, it's like 4 exterminators, but they're exterminating ghosts as opposed to cockroaches.
Yeah, well, I mean, to also take this bizarre premise, which could be completely interchangeable. It was the core members that made the original Ghostbusters great. They could have been, I guess as Rich Evans said once, they could have been scuba divers, and it still would have been a fucking great movie because you have this talent, right? And I'm not saying that Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy and the rest of these guys aren't talented. I'm saying that the direct...
Based on what I've seen. Because, look, I know what you're trying to say, but pretty much every single... especially a male critic who's tried to review this movie. I'm especially thinking of like Mundane Mad. It's like, look, I really like Kristen Wiig and Leslie Jones. They're hilarious on SNL. Like, I had never seen these people before because I don't watch SNL or whatever other shows they're on. I'd never seen them, so this was their chance to prove to me that they are actually funny comedians. No.
You're like, no. Well, I mean, when you look at the reviews, going back to like IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, I mean, so many of these reviews that are on the Rotten Tomato site, they all most of them are coming from like bloggy type websites, like stuff you'd think Gawker would be, you know, and nearly all of them have this really, really apologetic tone to them. Like, I mean, no, seriously, it's like most of them either start out with like this apologistic, I don't hate women, but kind of context, or it starts out with a complete feminist rant like the New York Times review, where it's just nothing but girl power, and it's like, okay, well, this is fine and dandy for you, but where is the movie review? I mean, you know, oh yeah, these women, they can go in and do what the boys can, and it's like, well, what about the movie? How's the movie? You're not talking about the movie. You're talking about the feminist angle to this entire thing. What about the movie? And then all of a sudden, here comes Richard Roper, who you could consider Roger Ebert's successor, and movie critic, whom I very much respect. And he gave this movie a 1-star review, and he says it is just fucking awful. I mean, he didn't mince words. He says, yeah, the only thing he said was, yeah, there's some debate and stuff about gender politics on the internet, and he just completely discards all of that and just eviscerates the movie. And
because the man is a professional.
Yes, he's reviewing the movie. He's not reviewing the gender politics that everyone seems to be fucking focusing on. And hopefully that's what we're going to do shortly is, you know, again, it was never the fact that there are women in the movie. It was the fact that this entire thing did not look funny. This looked like an Adam Sandler level comedy.
Okay, so the movie actually... The first 2 or 3 minutes of the film, it's probably my favorite part. Even though it's a blatant echo of the opening of the original movie. Only in the original it's a library, in this case it's a haunted mansion, but still there's some person that's largely unrelated to the plot that encounters the ghost, and we see the paranormal, the shit flying everywhere, and the ectoplasm, and then the person looks at the camera, and as the ghost is about to attack them, Ghostbusters, we get the logo of the movie. So it's pretty much a one-to-one recreation of the opening.
No, it's not. This new one is just nothing but fanfare. I mean, you know, the ground opens up and green light coming everywhere, and you see the ghost, and
Well, it's definitely more excessive than the original.
yeah,
but,
excess is the key word.
But compared to the rest of the movie, that bit is actually kind of restrained.
That's horrible.
I know.
But you're right.
So Kristen Wiig, the first character, the first Fembuster that we're introduced to, and yes, from here on out, I refuse to refer to these as Ghostbusters. They're Fembusters.
They shoot ghosts in the dick.
They do. They literally do. We'll get to that. But so Kristen Wiig is introduced, and at first, I did not like for the first 2 or 3 minutes. I did not despise this character because she actually seemed to be more or less grounded. Mm-hmm. Her whole thing is that she wants to be a serious professor. She wants to have her tenure. Yeah, she wants to prove herself in the eyes of, well, initially it's Tywin Lannister.
Yes.
Because he's the character that we're introduced to, but apparently Sigourney Weaver is the real mentor, even though we don't see her until the fucking end credits of the movie.
Well, actually, no, Sigourney Weaver is Kate McKinnon's mentor, not Kristen Wiig.
But, okay, in that case it makes even less sense, but...
Yeah.
So why didn't she prove herself to Tywin Lannister at the end? Why was there no payoff to this?
Well, there's no proving because all she wanted was tenure, and then she got completely derailed by this whole ghost hunting business. Because she wrote a book with like Melissa McCarthy, who she used to be friends with, and she
back in school, yes.
Back in school, and they used to like hunt ghosts together because she like said, and kind of a genuinely creepy story about like how her neighbor died, a mean old woman. And then, like, every night for, like, a year, she'd wake up in the middle of the night, and that woman would be standing at her bed after she died.
Yeah, and her parents would not believe her, and that's what compelled her to start researching the paranormal. But years later, she decided to distance herself from all of that stuff. But then, some character who I forget their name, but basically, they reach out to her because... They find a book on Amazon that was written by both Melissa McCarthy and Kristen Wiig, and apparently Kristen Wiig was not aware of this book's existence because, as far as she was concerned,
it was out of print or yeah.
So the thing about Kristen Wiig is that initially, she was the one who I identified with because she seemed like the most grounded one out of them all. She discovers that Melissa McCarthy had decided to publish that book. And she goes on Google, she searches her name, and bam, if you search her name, that book comes up. So she goes to confront Melissa McCarthy. And then our first introduction to Melissa McCarthy, like the very first thing that we learn about her character, is that she is basically a fat cunt. Reason being, number one, she is fat because the very first thing out of her mouth is that she mistakes Kristen Wiig for the delivery guy who's supposed to bring her wontons because she really likes wontons, and she keeps talking about wontons and how she likes eating. Get it? She's fucking fat.
Yes, and that's a recurring fucking thing throughout the entire goddamn movie. It's like, oh, you only gave me one wonton and look at all the soup. Oh my god. And then the next one, oh my god, look at it. And then at the end, oh my god, I got too many wontons and not enough soup. I just want a nice ratio.
Mm-hmm. And number two, the reason why she's a cunt is because not only did she publish this book without basically her co-author's knowledge or, more importantly, permission, but she's very confrontational about it. Even though from a legal standpoint, I'm sure that Kristen Wiig could sue her for publishing material without her knowledge, and more importantly, Kristen Wiig not getting any money out of this.
Yeah, especially when Kristen Wiig loses her tenure, she could sue for damages.
Yeah, pretty much. But Melissa McCarthy's response is, oh, you were always a stuck-up bitch, but hey, I've got myself a new friend, and that's when we're introduced to what's-her-face,
Kate McKinnon.
Kate McKinnon, who is like a walking poster boy for, let's see, autism, ADHD, bipolar disorder. She's like you know what, I take it back. She's a poster girl for Tumblr.
She is. And the worst thing is she's like a walking animaniac. I mean,
without the humor.
Yeah, obviously, but I mean, like, she's eating Pringles and just bouncing off the walls and fucking nuts. I mean, like, kind of like in a disturbing kind of nuts. I mean, like, Bill Murray was, kind of like, the and again, I'm making comparisons to the original because you gotta.
How can you not?
You can't.
How can you not?
Yeah, you can't not make comparisons to the original because this is what they're trying to reboot. If they're gonna pull all these actors back and put them inside the movie at gunpoint, mind you, then you should be able to compare it to the movie that they're trying to rehash in order to get a expanded universe. Anyway, so Bill Murray, he was kind of an oddball, but he wasn't just a fucking cartoon character. Dan Aykroyd's character of Ray Stantz, he was overly enthusiastic though, but it was kind of like an endearing man-child kind of way.
Yeah,
it wasn't neuroticism, or not neuroticism. It wasn't just like a psychopathy. I mean, this woman is just fucking nuts. I mean, it's just bouncing off the walls, and I swear she has like 16 mental disorders.
And so basically, she confronts them about the book, but and that's where my favorite joke of the entire movie shows up, where they start talking about ghosts and ghost catching, and Melissa McCarthy and the other one, the Tina Tamburina, basically. They tell Kristen Wiig that they have and by the way, Mike was completely right about this. They mispronounced what is it, EMP?
They call it electro.
It should be electronic voice phenomenon,
yes.
Something like that. But they call it electro voice phenomenon for some reason. But anyway, so they play her the recording, and you expect there to be some sort of like, ghostly premonition of some kind. It's like, get out or something like that, right? Instead, the camera zooms in, there's some build-up, and then we hear a fart noise. But here's the real joke, kids. The fart didn't come out of Kate McKinnon, whatever her name is, ass. It came out of her vajayjay. So that's the kind of level of humor we're dealing with here.
Yeah.
Not actual clever, witty one-liners from the original movie, of which there are plenty. Instead, it's fart jokes. Like Jack and Jill. Like The Ridiculous Six.
Mm-hmm.
Like Grown Ups 2.
Yep.
Anyway, so they go to investigate the abandoned house, or the haunted house, rather. And it's pretty much the recreation of the library scene from the original movie. But anyway, so basically that's where you see that scene from the trailer where the ghost vomits all over Kristen Wiig. And later we get that funny line about how she had to scrub her vagina clean of ectoplasm because hysterical. Then, and mind you, as this happens, Melissa McCarthy is recording everything with a Sony camcorder, of course.
Yep.
And she, once again, against Kristen Wiig's wishes, she uploads this to YouTube. Again, fed cunt. Like I said, fed cunt. That's our character. And this is actually you know what? I'm gonna be honest. As much as I want to shit on this movie, this is the one and only moment that I didn't laugh, but I chuckled, because as the ghost escapes, it cuts to the footage being filmed on the camcorder, and we see a close-up of Kristen Wiig's face. She's covered in ectoplasm, and she's screaming at the top of her lungs like, "Oh my god, we just saw a ghost! It's a real ghost! I believe in ghosts right now!" And then there's a hard cut to her sitting
in front of Tywin Lannister.
In front of Tywin Lannister, who's showing her that clip on YouTube, and that is the only clever. And again, it wasn't something that any of the female Ghostbusters said. It was a joke made in editing.
Yes.
So it's funny because of the juxtaposition and because of Tywin Lannister, because of how serious he is compared to everyone else in the movie. Because, like you said, is pretty much a human animaniac.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Charles Dance is one scary motherfucker.
And he's the best character in the movie because he's the only character who behaves like a normal human being.
Exactly. I mean, the story doesn't make any sense, or very, very little sense. Because after Melissa McCarthy essentially ruins Kristen Wiig's career, Kristen Wiig still hangs out with Melissa McCarthy to fight ghosts.
Well, I don't think she's got much of a choice. It's kind of like, again, mirroring the original movie. It's like when Dan Aykroyd is ejected because they were thrown out of the university.
All three of them. All three of them were ejected.
Yeah, but here's the difference. At the very least, in the original movie, all three were on board with the kind of research they were doing. They actually, Peter Venkman, Stans, and Egan Spengler, they believed in what they were doing. Yes. So once they got kicked out of the university, it's like, you know what? Fuck those guys. We're going to start our own business. We're going to become the Ghostbusters.
Exactly.
In the new version, though, first of all, we get two scenes where the characters are thrown out of the university, because first Kristen Wiig gets thrown out of her university, and then Melissa McCarthy and the other one also get thrown out from their establishment. And by the way, this kind of starts a recurring theme where every single character, not just the Fembusters, but every single character in this movie is either an over-the-top spastic of some kind or a complete douchebag.
Yes.
Because the guy who throws them out, it's like, it's not just, you're out. I don't believe in what you're doing is unscientific. You're a bunch of charlatans. I don't want to see you in my establishment. Instead, it's some fat middle-aged guy who gives them the finger.
The biggest asshole you could ever imagine. I'm using a gender-neutral term here so that we don't get in trouble. This guy is just the biggest fucking asshole. He's doing all the middle finger tricks, like, oh, let me turn it up for you, and doing a little crank, and blowing up his middle finger, like.
Which, again,
it's juvenile.
It's juvenile, and it's completely unrealistic because in this politically correct climate, in the current year, as it were, you can get fired just for
doing that.
Looking. Never mind that, you can get fired just for looking at a woman the wrong way. And here he is, basically telling them to go fuck yourselves, bitches. And there are no repercussions for this.
Yes, but you're gonna notice that once we get to Chris Hemsworth, that there's only two types of men in this entire film: the assholes and the dumbasses. I mean, there's no between.
The handsome dumbasses who are there for the visual and possibly the physical enjoyment of Kristen Wiig.
Oh yeah, Kristen Wiig is doing everything trying to get inside of Chris Hemsworth's pants, which hey, I'm sex positive, so whatever does it for you, but just don't be jumping on our asses when people look at like Scarlett Johansson inside black leather pants and be like, oh shame. But anyways, tangent.
Again, here's another problem though. They decide to become Ghostbusters, but we never really see them try to get the business off the ground. In the original movie, there's like a progression. They get the firehouse. We never see them develop the technology, but still, they start going on TV, making that cheesy commercial. Do you have spooks and specters and call it the Ghostbusters? At first it looks cheesy and everyone thinks they're charlatans, but then they go into the hotel and they catch Slimer. And all of a sudden their popularity grows. We get a montage of them actually starting to receive more calls.
They're on Larry King Live.
Yeah. In the case of the new movie, though, they only catch the Dragon Ghost at a rock concert, which again,
and then let it go.
And then let it go. But again, that entire scene is basically a recreation, an echo, if you will, of the hotel Let's Catch Slimer scene from the original movie. And then I don't think they ever catch any more ghosts until the third act of the movie. Yet somehow Ghostbusters become popular. Somehow people start cheering them on. And later, when we encountered the mayor character played by Andy Garcia, he congratulates them on a job well done, even though, as far as we're concerned, they only caught one ghost so far. And then, as you said, let it go, which led to the death of Bill Murray's character. Which somehow never comes to bite them in the ass, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what happens? The mayor and his real asshole assistant, this time a female asshole, surprisingly, comes out and is like, okay, you guys are too popular now, and we have to look like we're discrediting you so people don't know what's going on. And it's like, they caught like one ghost. Why are they popular again? I mean,
also, if actually took some notes about this, but apparently Bill Murray's character, who very clearly he didn't want to be in that movie,
he was sitting down the entire fucking time.
Because, I mean, if you were in that position where you were legally threatened by Sony, would you put any effort into your performance? But anyway, but Bill Murray's character was obviously he was kind of supposed to be like a new version of I think it's Walter Peck. There we go, from the original movie. But I also got like a James Randi, the Amazing Randi vibe from him.
Oh yeah,
because of the cane and the head, and he's supposed to be like this famous debunker.
Yeah,
which is basically what Randy's entire career has been all this time. But here's the thing. When Randy tries to debunk someone, he makes sure that this is a public event, that there are witnesses involved, and he makes sure that it's almost like a controlled experiment of some kind, to ensure that there's no chicanery involved. So, like, the concept of that kind of character being not the main antagonist, mind you, but sort of a secondary antagonist to the Ghostbusters is kind of interesting. Plus, earlier in the movie, they bring up like all the those ghost chasers fake shows on TV. So you would almost think that, as Mike Sticklasa and Jay and Rich also talked in their review of the Fembusters on Regular Media,
that it was gonna go somewhere.
Yeah, like that was a setup.
Kind of like this conversation. You think it was gonna go somewhere?
Oh, we're trying to get somewhere.
I know.
But okay, where do you want to go with this? Aside from,
well, again, we kind of point out the fact that all the men in the movie are either assholes or idiots, and nothing says idiot more than freaking Chris Hemsworth. A man who looks at a fucking aquarium and says, I think this is the one time I actually did kind of laugh out loud because it was so fucking dumb, where Chris Hemsworth looks at an aquarium and he says, an aquarium is a submarine for fish. And it just hit me so fucking
you
odd.
laughed at that?
It hit me so fucking odd. It was like, you've listened to Carl Pilkington, right?
Oh, of course, yeah. But
I mean, every once in a while, there's just like this observation that's like a truth, but it's just so stupid.
But well, the problem is most of the comedy feels like improv. Failed improv at that.
No, Paul Fieg admits it, that they were improving back and forth, and a lot of the stuff like where Chris Hemsworth is like making the logos. A lot of the conversation, like the Mike hat thing, is entirely improv, and they decided to keep it.
Speaking of the, let's actually talk about the characters because we've kind of introduced them. But here's the problem: the original Ghostbusters, right? You could tell all of them apart, not just visually, but you could actually try that Mr. Plunkett / the Phantom Menace experiment, right? Where you have to describe the characters without talking about their physical appearance or their job. You just describe their actual characters, their idiosyncrasies, their quirks, their personalities. And you could do that with the original Ghostbusters. You know, with Bill Murray, he's kind of like the eye-rolling, sarcastic, okay, I guess I'll kind of go along with this. Well, plus he's also the ladies' man and also a bit of an underdog who's trying to impress the Sigourney Weaver character. Then you have Dan Aykroyd, who's like the perpetual man-child, who's the most excited about all of this. And then you have Egon, who's like the borderline autistic an actual widget scientist, who's the brains of the operation, who apparently doesn't know how to have any fun because his hobbies include collecting molds and spores,
yeah.
As he tells Janine.
But see, you could honestly do the exact same experiment with the new cast, except it's not going to be anything remotely positive.
But see, I would say that you can't because all of their personalities are interchangeable depending on what moment in the movie we're talking about. Because, for example, Kristen Wiig's character, initially she's supposed to be like the serious. At first, I thought she was going to be like the Egon character, right? Because she wants to be the professor. But then she tags along with the other two into the haunted house, and then she becomes kind of like the Bill Murray character, where it's like, okay, I guess we're going to encounter a ghost. Ooh, this is so scary, right? That's basically what Bill Murray was doing in the original movie. But then, at other times, she's being completely neurotic. She's talking to herself. She's doing that stupid dance where she shakes her ass left and right.
Trying to get.
No, even before that, when
Chris
she was in
Hemsworth.
the empty auditorium.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's like I'm being neurotic, I'm talking to myself, ooh, I can do it. But then, when she's around Chris Hemsworth, all of a sudden she becomes like a fucking, some kind of cougar. Who's trying to, no, so she becomes like a sexual predator who's trying to get inside his pants.
She's practically a rapist. I mean, you remember that one experiment where like they guys would catcall women like, "Hey, nice tits," that kind of thing, and women are like, "Oh, this is so sick. Maybe we should turn the tides on men." And so a bunch of women are going around to guys saying, "Hey, nice balls. Hey, nice dick." And actually, all the guys are like, "Oh, thanks." So
yeah, thanks for boosting my self-esteem.
I mean, well, that's kind of what I'm getting with the Kristen Wiig character is, if this was a man fawning all over a hot secretary, the movie would probably make a point that there'd be some sexual harassment lawsuit somewhere in there versus everything happens with Kristen Wiig and Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah, and then you have Melissa McCarthy, who
is yes, and see, we're doing this. This is exactly what I'm saying. Is you did the Kristen Wiig character as neurotic, and then she's a cougar when Chris Hemsworth is on the screen now.
But at other points, she's just as autistic as the Tina Tamburina character. Like, after catching the dragon, all of them are dancing, and Kristen Wiig, who's supposed to be the wet blanket character, she's practically grinding on Chris Hemsworth. And
Yes.
Melissa McCarthy, she's probably the only one who has a static personality throughout the entire movie because she's basically fat and a cunt. That's her defining
Well,
characteristic.
her defining characteristic is apparently she just does not give a shit about anything as far as like any people. Like obviously, like you said, Kristen Wiig's character, she didn't give a shit that she published Kristen Wiig covered in ooze on YouTube and got her fired.
Yeah.
I mean, there's almost zero remorse for any of that. And these are supposed to be good friends. Excuse me.
Yeah. Mind you, Bill Murray and Harold Ramis also mortgage Dan Aykroyd's parents' house in the original movie, but they
Yeah.
never try to get him fired. It's more like, okay, someone has to fork over the money for us to get the firehouse. Whereas in the new film, and speaking of the Tina Tamburino, like all throughout the entire movie, she acts like a complete spastic. Like almost like she's trying to go for like a mad scientist angle of some kind.
Yeah, exactly. Have you ever seen Cowboy Bebop?
Yes, I have.
You know that Ed character?
Yeah, the girl with the red hair.
The one who's
But
just a fucking... Yeah, that's Kate McKinnon in a nutshell.
Yeah, but at the very least, Ed was endearing in parts.
Yes, big difference.
Kate, what's her face? She's obnoxious throughout the entire
Yes.
movie until the very end, when all of them are celebrating their success. When she decides to toast, and all of a sudden, despite the fact that she's been acting all crazy, almost like she's Harley Quinn throughout the entire movie,
That's a disservice to Harley Quinn.
yeah, she's being this massive extrovert, almost like a mad scientist of some kind. It's like, oh, I can think of like 9 ways we can experiment with a cadaver. But then she gets up and she turns into Egon. It's like she gets all serious and starts mumbling. It's like the purpose of science is to find truth, and as far as I'm concerned, truth is love, and we found love today. So all of you are my friends, and I'm really insecure, and I'm the science. Where did this come
Yeah,
from?
in this last scene of the movie.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
She's been licking her lips and winking at Kristen Wiig the entire time, probably trying to get into her pants.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, she becomes this socially awkward, introverted Egon Spangler type of character.
yeah, and again, it happens at the very end of the movie. So obviously, the character does a complete flip, a complete 180, for no reason except that they're eating pizza in a bar, I guess.
Just for that one scene,
Yeah, for that-
because after the credits, she goes back to being the mad scientist.
Yes, exactly. But then again, it's like almost the last scene of the movie, and that's a part of the. I guess they didn't drive that fact hard enough through like subtext.
Yeah, I guess that's where she has to have her arc needs to come to a closure.
With by giving a fucking monologue. Yeah.
As far as Leslie Jones goes, I guess she was the least annoying one.
Surprisingly.
Yeah, despite the fact that, I still cringe every single time.
Oh.
I'm reminded of the power of petty compels you.
I cringed throughout the entire thing, but at least her character was consistent and empathetic.
She was the only one who behaved like, aside from Tywin Lannister,
Yes.
of course, but in the Fembusters circle, out of 4 of them, she's the only one who behaved like a normal human being when she encountered a ghost.
Yes, when she sees like the mannequins and like the mannequin like turns her head to her.
Which is a legitimately creepy imagery. I think anyone would be disturbed by
Yes.
that. Oh, anyone but the Fembusters, apparently.
Right.
Because, they've got balls of steel, despite the fact that they're females. Again, the original Ghostbusters, they were terrified when they encountered the Zool dogs and Gozer, and specifically the Stay Puft Marshmallow.
Well, Bill Murray was terrified of Slimer. Even
Who wouldn't be? That thing is disgusting.
Yes.
Which, by the way, is the Slimer, as well as his girlfriend, apparently, make an appearance in this movie for no fucking reason, besides the fact that, oh, remember Slimer? And I think they're also trying to branch off and make like the Slimer.
they were trying to make a children's Slimer show. Yes.
Yeah, and speaking of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, he also makes an appearance in this movie.
Yeah, multiple billboards, and then at the very go ahead, you can drop this one.
Yeah, at the very end, he appears like a giant balloon.
Thanksgiving Day parade blimp.
Yeah, who almost crushes the Fembusters, but then Kristen Wiig comes to save the day with, get this, a small knife.
Swiss
pocket
Army knife,
that she
yeah,
has.
just
Swiss Army knife.
Pops him and he explodes, which I guess you can use a knife to kill a ghost. What?
Well, he was a balloon, but if
He's
you
a
think
balloon
about it, they had
ghost.
to use with the previous ghosts, with the previous balloon ghosts, they had to use their equipment in order to destroy them. But in the case of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, he can go fuck himself.
And see, this is the kind of thing. The ghosts themselves. I want to spend a little bit of time on this, just because it needs to be pointed out. No one else really done it. Paul Fieg said that in his hacked, leaked Sony email that, you know, talking about like, oh, there's other ghosts from other dimensions and ghosts from aliens and all kinds of other really stupid shit. I mean, he's expanding the definition of ghost to that of a Saturday morning cartoon, the real Ghostbusters. Anyways.
But even the animated series had more terrifying ghosts than this movie.
Yeah, I mean, fucking Sam Hain, the pumpkin-headed monster. Yeah. Anyways, Ghostbusters fan, since, you know, little kid. Anyway.
No, you're a misogynist. That's who you are.
Oh, yep, that's what I am. Sorry, I have to be rebranded by someone else. Yep. Anyways, the ghosts. So you start off with the ghost of the woman, the killer of this mansion, where, you know, the killer killed a bunch of guests or something like that, and then they locked her up in a basement. She starved to death down there. And then the next ghost you see is like a ghost who in the full black and white prisoner's pajamas that was electrocuted, killed on the electric chair, and he's down the subways where you first meet Leslie Jones and our villain, who we should get to.
We will talk about him later.
We won't be able to talk about much because he's just such a fucking lame-ass character. Even Roper says it's the most unmemorable character ever. Anyways, so you get another ghost of a person. And then all of a sudden at the rock concert, where the fuck did the dragon come from?
Planet 9 from outer space.
I don't know, because that's the thing is, you have these human human ghosts, which kind of makes sense. And even a lot of the ghosts in Ghostbusters were humanoid, even though there were some like dimensional rift type things that they never really explained.
But they hint enough at it that it kind of makes sense. That
it has a Lovecraftian twist. Where
yeah, I was gonna say it's like some sort of interdimensional, like the Elder Ones from Lovecraft.
Right, and they try to explain that's what ghosts are, interdimensional beings.
Yeah.
Which I guess, what do you call it? Psychic echo?
Something like that, I guess. Do I look like Dan Aykroyd to you?
God, I hope not. Unless you bring the Skull Head vodka, or the Crystal Head vodka. But anyways, which is delicious. I've had one of those before. It's fucking amazing. Anyways, not to ape RLM, but anyways, you have a dragon ghost, and it's like, where the fuck did this dragon ghost come from? I mean, were dragons ghosts? I mean, did dragons exist? How do you get a dragon ghost, and how come there's a dragon ghost at the fucking rock concert with a guest appearance by Ozzy Osbourne?
Oh, I facepalmed myself.
God. I mean, I just had some flashbacks to Jack and Jill, where you have Al Pacino singing about...
That's exactly what I was thinking about.
Cappuccino at Dunkin' Donuts, selling Dunkin' Donuts. I'm surprised that Ozzy wasn't like eating like Ozzy's Oreos.
Yeah, or he wasn't the one performing, but I guess they didn't pay him enough for him to actually pick up a guitar and play a few chords.
Well, can the guy even talk anymore? Because when I used to watch like the Osbournes... When I used to watch the Osbournes, all I ever heard Ozzy say was, fucking Sharon, fucking...
No, that's basically what he does in this movie as well, because I think he says, like, you know, Sharon, this is exactly like the days of my youth.
Yeah.
That's his celebrity cameo in this movie.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yep. And so, anyways, you have the ghosts of people and you have the ghosts of dragons, and then...
Which... You know what? I could tolerate the inconsistency if the design of the ghost was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like, what's up with that ghost in Times Square that is like walking? He's like Uncle Sam on stilts. What the fuck was that? What the fuck was that?
I don't know. And then you have like the ghosts of pilgrims.
Yeah, and like Revolutionary War fighters and shit. And it's like, wow.
Again, if the design was interesting, I'd tolerate that.
If the effects were more interesting, I'd tolerate it.
Well, yeah, I mean, other people have pointed out the fact that they look like fucking Scooby-Doo ghosts, which they do.
Yes.
Which they do. There's nothing, because like in the original Ghostbusters movie, you have like the taxi driver, like who's like a zombie. Yeah, that looks disturbing.
Well, a lot more like... But you actually had like practical effect ghosts doing all this stuff. Well, claymation. I'll never go back to claymation after CGI, though, but the effects in the original Ghostbusters still hold up. Largely, the proton packs, all the ghosts, except for maybe a couple of shots with the claymation dogs, look great. Even like the simplicity of the Traveler and that fucking top of the building, it all looks decent. And this is one of those movies that, have you ever like watched like a movie you like, and then like a year later you look at it again and the CGI looks like shit?
I can't think of a few off the top of my head, but
I can think of a bajillion. I mean, starting with Mortal Kombat. I mean, you know, the CGI reptile, it looked so great back in the day, and then the year later it's like, what the fuck is this shit?
Yeah. But again, all of this could have been forgiven if the movie was good, because it's not about the effects, but... Because again, you know, some of the effects in the original movie, they have aged, some better than others, because the Stay Puft Marshmallow one still looks good.
Well, yeah, but again, practical effect.
Yeah. But in this new movie, I guess we might as well start talking about the villain, because I was going to bring up the fact that... So, the villain, it's probably the most underwhelming part of the entire movie. There are plenty of flaws, but he could have actually done something with the villain, because for the first time, well, not the first time in Ghostbusters history, but at the very least when it comes to the movies, the villain was not some sort of interdimensional demon/god creature. It was a human being. And interestingly enough, the thing, as Stan's 1984 pointed out in his Reddit post, this character, he's so unmemorable that I don't even remember his name, but whatever. He actually had some similarity to two of the Ghostbusters, the Fembusters, Melissa McCarthy and Kristen Wiig, because like them, he also saw a ghost when he was young, and all throughout his life he was bullied as a result. Again, kind of like Kristen Wiig. So you would almost think that there would be some sort of, if not affinity, but some sort of parallel or solidarity between the two of them, where the Fembusters would try to empathize with the guy.
Right. It's you think of like almost like a Batman and Joker comparison, where both of them have tragedies in their lives. One goes one route, the other one goes the other route.
Yes. But instead, and I guess kind of like, once again, Batman and the Joker, the villain of this movie was also influenced by the Fembusters, because the reason why he knows so much about the ghosts is because he had read the book that was published by Melissa McCarthy and Kristen Wiig. Although, interestingly enough, this was one thing that I kept thinking about, like, by the time the Fembusters catch up with him, he has far more advanced knowledge and understanding of the ghost world than they do, even though his only point of reference is their book. So, how is he leap and bounds ahead of them when it comes to, like, breaching the portal between the world, our world, and the ghost world?
Were there any, like, other texts when he got nabbed? I mean, all there was that one diary sketchbook that was terrible.
Yeah, which is, like seriously, he draws himself being like a giant and squashing people, and
like Godzilla.
Yeah, and he leaves evidence, paper trails of him literally writing, I shall kill people, I shall have my revenge, grr, I hate society, grr. So
he's like an adolescent, like Charles Manson. I mean,
I guess I suppose they were going for like an Elliot Rodgers type. Poorly, yeah, but also, can you even fault the guy for, well, it's not that you can actually sympathize with the guy much, because his character
he's not really in the movie.
Oh, he's barely in the movie, and his character is very one-dimensional. All he does is just, like in the journal, he talks to himself in his reflection in the mirror, saying, yes, I shall have my revenge, I shall unleash the ghosts on this world, and you puny mortals will bow before me. That's literally the dialogue that he says, or the monologue. Basically, these are the lines that he says in the movie, but here's the problem. Keeping in line with every other character being an asshole in the movie, everyone who interacts with him, like, when we first see him, he's at his job, talking to himself in the mirror, and he gets a call from his superintendent, I suppose, and as opposed to the superintendent being all professional and saying, it's like, hey, Larry, we've got a leak on, I don't know, floor 9 or something like that. Instead, his superintendent literally says, hey, weirdo, you got your job to do. There's a leak on floor 9, so clean it up. And he's like, yes, sir. Fucking weirdo, I hate you.
It's like this entire script is written by a 5-year-old, because I mean, there's no place in the country where you could talk that way to an employee and not have the employee end up owning your entire company.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know, if the guy was like the guy who owned the building, you know, and he was talking like that to his employee, the employee could sue his ass, or, you know, even just quit. I mean, it's
entirely unrealistic, which is a huge problem with this movie, where the first movie, it's still grounded in reality. I mean, there's an escalation.
It's totally realistic with,
library
ghosts and shit. Yeah, I know what you're saying. There's
a juxtaposition.
Yes, exactly.
The Ghostbusters, the original Ghostbusters, they're actually terrified of the Zool dogs, and especially Gozer, and including the Safe Bar of Marshmallow Man. It's like Egon is so terrified that he completely lost any capacity for rational thought.
Yes.
Bill Murray's, all of them are terrified.
Bill Murray's response, there's something you don't see every day.
Which is another coping mechanism. Yes. At no point in this movie are the Fembusters terrified. In fact, when they encounter ghosts en masse, we'll go back to the main villain in a second here, but when they encounter all these ghosts en masse in Times Square, like, this is the first time they've dealt with something like this on such a large scale, because before that they'd only caught the dragon ghost, and that's pretty much it. But in this case, all these ghosts, and then you have the main villain who turns into like 100 feet tall ghostly version of the Ghostbuster, of the Fembusters logo.
Or after he turns into a cartoon Casper looking ghost.
But, regardless, so our main villain, who, by the way, why did the main villain commit suicide? Because the Fembusters catch up with him as he's about to unleash all of these apparitions and spooks and specters and demons upon our world, and all he has to do apparently is to flip a switch, and we're fucked. All of us are fucked. But instead, he's like, oh, God damn it, Fembusters, you've caught up with me, so I have no other choice but to kill myself. And he commits suicide because he grabs like the two electric currents or something like that.
If you strike me down here, Darth, I'll become more powerful than you. It's some Obi-Wan Kenobi shit.
Sort of, but then he comes back as a ghost. He possesses Melissa McCarthy at first, and that's when we get our also hilarious references to The Exorcist, the power of Betty compels you. But then he possesses Chris Hemsworth, and as Chris Hemsworth, he comes back to his lair in order to flip that switch, which he could have flipped when he was still alive.
Or as a ghost.
Or even as a ghost. He could have possessed anyone. I guess he's got a personal beef against the Fembusters because they killed him, but
he did do one thing that was slightly smart, and that was trying to destroy their equipment.
Yeah, but that's, I guess, yeah, but
I mean, if anyone's gonna fuck up your stuff, I mean, he went over and tried to. He actually targeted the proton packs, and then they ended up having to use like the ghost shredder and the power glove and fucking Kate McKinnon's ghost whips.
Oh yeah, I was talking about that.
I was like, oh my god, this is so bad with all the go girl punching and ghost shredding. I'm like, it'd just be even worse if there was like a girl with like a proton pack whip, and lo and behold, she pulls it out of her holsters like they're pistols, licks them like they're cocks, and then starts whipping all the ghosts and shit. And I'm like, oh no.
The only thing that was missing was the Fembusters using their proton guns to shoot the main villain in the dick. Oh wait, that happens in the movie.
Yep.
They shoot him in the balls because they gotta #smash the patriarch.
Oh, so the proton pack still worked then?
Yeah, so his plan failed.
Miserably. And they know that he was there, so that they knew to prepare for him. And
whereas he could have just possessed any random citizen of New York, and
especially one of the two cops standing right next to the fucking machine.
Yeah, which he doesn't. Fuck me, it doesn't make it.
The movie doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's very, very little of it actually makes any sense.
It's. You see, the problem is, though, is as I was watching it, as I told you this before we hit the record button, I don't think I despised it. It's still a terrible movie, don't get me wrong, but I don't think I despised it as much as Batman v Superman, because when I was watching Batman v Superman, at the very least I was kind of engaged with the movie. I went through several emotional states, from confusion to bewilderment to depression to suicidal thoughts to anger. So, at the very least, I was actually actively trying to wrap my mind around what was going on. My brain was actually working at like 125% capacity, trying to make sense out of the nonsense that was going on the screen. With Fembusters, on the other hand, I spent the entire running time of the movie with my head resting on my fist, going like, yep, this thing happened. Like, I was just going down the Stan's 1984 Reddit post, and like crossing off all the stuff that he called. It's like, yep, here's the Quiffin joke. and here's the power of Patty compels you, and here's the bad guy turning into the Ghostbusters logo, and so on and so forth. So
where's the dance scene? Fuck, it got cut.
Oh, well, thankfully it got cut, but apparently that's going to make an appearance in the extended cut of the movie, which is going to be released on, like, Blu-ray and digital, and I don't know who's going to even watch that, because apparently...
Did I already mention the fact that Paul Fieg was reported to have been crying on the set because he couldn't get the dance number to work?
Not on microphone, he didn't.
Oh, okay. Well, guess what, guys? According to Midnight's Edge, there's been reports that Paul Feig was seen crying on the lot because he couldn't get the dance number in his original script to work, and that's why it ends up on the cutting room floor. That's why when Chris Hemsworth is being possessed by the guy, he does that John Travolta pose from like Saturday Night Fever, and then it cuts. All the military guys are like doing the pose, and all of a sudden it cuts to the Fembusters arriving, and they look around. They're like, "What the hell's going on?" You know, it got completely axed, but you still see it in the credits. So it's like, and you know the worst part is, that's probably the one part I was actually kind of wanting to see that got axed. Not the queef jokes, none of this other stuff though. I just want to see what this dance number was supposed to look like.
Well,
so I could look at it and be like, what the fuck is this doing in here?
Well, I was gonna say, it's not like you were looking forward to it because it was gonna be good or funny.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like watching like two cars like backing out of a parking lot. You stand there and you kind of wait to see like what's gonna happen when they like rear end each other.
I mean, this movie is it's garbage. But the problem is it almost could have been. I almost wish it were worse. I almost wish it were like 150% hashtag girl power.
Oh, it was.
Smash the patriarchy nonsense. I mean, it was to a degree.
The only expression you hear out of these women most of the time is the phrase "woohoo." I mean, seriously, every single time they do something. Again, Leslie Jones, her character is legitimately scared in places, and you could even see that's a racial stereotype. You know, oh lordy, it's a ghostesses. You know, that kind of shit. I mean, no, that's what it feels like. It feels so fucking racist. But of course, I'm white, so I have no idea what's racist or not. So forgive me. I don't want to be like, you know, the white knight literally and be like, oh, that's racist, because I hate when fucking people do that.
Well, that's apparently we're not going to go there, but that's apparently what Leslie Jones is doing on Twitter these days. And that's all we're going to say on that subject.
Yep. Anyways, so Leslie Jones is the only one who's actually has any type of emotion. I mean, even the original Ghostbusters are freaked out by certain things, whereas everybody else, all the other characters, are all woohoo, yeah, awesome, and they're high-fiving and, you know, woohoo, and doing that fucking chick thing. Yeah, I'm saying it, the chick thing, where they like almost like pat each other on the back. Woohoo! Yeah, you did it.
Yeah, it is basically you go girl.
Yes, that's what I mean. Everything sounds you go girl, without saying it.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't see like Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd sticking their head out of Ecto 1 when it comes out of the firehouse, going woohoo.
Oh, by the way, I don't know if you noticed this, but at around something like the 20-minute mark of the movie, it was, I think it's after they catch one of the ghosts, maybe the dragon ghost or something like that, but Melissa McCarthy explicitly draws Kristen Wiig's attention to the comment section of the video.
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, and, like, I think Kristen Wiig is unsure of this entire thing, but Melissa McCarthy says, like, you know, yeah, but look at all the positive comments that we got. And she accidentally reads one of the negative ones, which says, and I quote, "Ain't no bitches gonna hunt no ghosts." And then she says like, "Oh no, that's the wrong one. Oh, here's the wrong one. You guys are so cool," or something like that. So, you know what? I'm curious exactly when that scene was recorded.
Yes.
Because if that scene, there are two possibilities. Either that scene was done as part of some reshoots, like after the release of the trailer, after the whole controversy, after Sony trying to accuse anyone who was critical of the trailers of being a misogynist. So,
which seems to have worked according to Rotten Tomatoes. It was a valiant effort, Max. You gotta give it a little golf clap because these girls are funny in other things.
We gotta give them a participation ribbon, is what you're saying?
Yes, exactly.
But no, so either that scene was recorded after the fact, which is kind of petty if you think about it, because if you're gonna, if you know, if this were truly a case of misogyny and sexism, which I don't think it was, but surely the best way to prove all of those quote-unquote haters wrong is to make a legitimately good movie that's like a worthy successor to the original Ghostbusters. So that's scenario number one. Scenario number two is that movie was written in the script before the entire controversy, in which case Paul Fieg and friends were basically banking, they were anticipating, nay, they were hoping for people to dislike this movie and to criticize the Fembusters, because in that case they would be morally justified in shitting on pretty much their own audience.
And there's no such thing as bad publicity.
I suppose. I don't know what's worse. Scenario number one, case number one is petty, but case number two is almost like
Devious.
Machiavellian if you think about it. Yeah.
Banking on the fact that people are gonna not like this and using that as kind of like a way to get the word out.
So here's the thing, though. So we've seen the movie. It's garbage.
Can't say it's garbage. You gotta be more specific. You gotta say it's Adam Sandler level of garbage, because you can't say, oh, it's garbage, because then it could be misinterpreted as, oh my god, they just don't like women. They hate women. And we got to put up one of those little review things and say, oh, we don't hate women, and this was a valiant effort because they're women and they're usually funny, and they're usually Paul Feig's usually a good director, and his other stuff comes into play into my review.
Yeah, I know you're making a joke, but I'm not even gonna try to justify my opinion and say it's like, no, I really like these women on SNL. It's like, no. This was the first Paul Feig movie I saw. This was the first. Well, I've seen Melissa McCarthy in other movies, some, but like Kristen Wiig, Leslie Jones, the other one. This was the first time I saw them as an ensemble, and this was their chance. All of these people to prove themselves that they can be funny, that they can make a worthy successor / follow-up / reimagining of Ghostbusters, and they failed completely. Which brings me to my final point. So the movie is out. People have seen it. If the critics are to be believed, it's a valiant effort, and I swear, like most of the positive reviews of this movie, they talk about how the plot doesn't really make sense, how it rehashes a lot of the stuff from the original, how most of the jokes fall flat on their face.
Beats you on the head with the original.
Yeah, so they acknowledge all of these problems, but at the end, as you pointed out, they go, but it's a valiant effort, and we could use more female characters in our movie, so I'm giving this movie 4 out of 5 stars. It's like, what?
Yeah, exactly. See, my take of the entire movie is essentially this: a bunch of women going around screaming "woohoo!" and then
patting themselves on the back, saying, "We ain't afraid of no ghosts and no men." Apparently,
and I'd just be as offended if there's a bunch of men going, "All right, bro," it'd be like, ugh, fucking hell. And then the other part is all the cameo shit and all the beating your head over with the original Ghostbusters crap. Like nothing is more symbolic of that than Dan Aykroyd driving up in a fucking taxi saying, "I ain't afraid no ghosts," and driving off. A scene that could be completely cut, completely left on the cutting room floor because it serves zero purpose except shoving the old Ghostbusters right up your fucking ass.
So, okay, what I'm trying to say is the movie is out. It's garbage. Adam Sandler role of garbage. Yep. So, what do you think happens now? Because obviously, the critics and the people of the hashtag progressive persuasion will never admit that the movie is bad because they've put so much investment into it. They've put all their chips on this movie in order to prove basement-dwelling, neck-bearded misogynists like you and me
Ghostbusters
wrong.
Fans.
Pretty much. It's amazing how apparently all of us are supposed to be, quote unquote geeks. We're supposed to be a part of the community, except when something like this comes out and certain members of the community they disagree with it, they criticize it for completely valid reasons, and then all of a sudden all of these there are men who did this as well, but sometimes like these female journalists and bloggers who are supposed to be also geeks, but then all of a sudden it's like, oh, ew, these nerds who are into video games and movies, oh, they criticize my Fembusters, oh, they probably never get laid, that's why they're so angry.
No, it's definitely not the case with us, I don't think.
No, of course. I mean, have you seen all the LMX?
I wouldn't talk about you and me, asshole.
Sorry, I had to go there.
Oh, fuck. Sorry, I had to go. There's going to be the next catchphrase for the next LMX CineMax thing.
Hey, some of the latest fan art that the Fubo has shown us is actually good. So
yeah, including the one from your nemesis.
Yeah, my arch nemesis, who actually apologized for that CineMax dirt art. But anyways, we're going off on a tangent. So what I'm curious about, what I'm trying to say here is, what do you think happens next? Because we know for a fact that Sony needs to recoup at the very least $500 million in order for this movie to be a success. Do you think they'll be able to do so?
Well, they're already at 41 million, right? How much further is it to go?
Well, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. So who knows? Who knows? Like personally, I think we have. Okay. Personally, I think we have another The Amazing Spider-Man 2 situation in our hands.
I was gonna say the exact same thing. The Amazing Spider-Man, they tried setting up a cinematic universe with this is the secret vault with the Doc Ock arms and the Vulture wings and all this other shit, and nothing ever fucking came of it. Nothing ever will.
Yeah, but who's gonna bail out Sony this time? Marvel is definitely not gonna save them this time. They sort of all offered them an olive branch with Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. But with Ghostbusters, well, I guess there might be some other studios who would be interested in that property, but
I don't think that anyone's going to touch this property again because, I mean...
after all the controversy?
Well, not the controversy. I mean, I don't think even if they made like a Ghostbuster team with like one white man, one black man, one white woman, one black woman, even if they did something like that, I don't think a studio's going to touch it because it's one of those properties that people just don't want to see rebooted. People still think that the original holds up, and it does. It's a timeless comedy. It's like trying to remake Caddyshack. Well, Caddyshack in my case isn't exactly a great example, but you take another classic comedy like Blazing Saddles or something like that, then you try to remake it, and then try to basically neuter a lot of the jokes because we live in a PC culture at the moment. It's going to fall on its ass. I mean, you cannot take a classic comedy that is beloved by millions and try to remake it. And because you're fighting an uphill battle right from the get-go.
But then again, in this era of endless remakes, reboots, sequels, and so on and so forth, I mean, you could say that RoboCop is a classic movie, but they also tried rebooting. Well, they did reboot RoboCop a couple of years ago, and it was a completely forgettable remake. And we haven't heard anything about any more sequels or like a RoboCop cinematic universe. Same thing with Terminator. Terminator Genesis comes out. It's completely mediocre. Some even say bad. So
starring Emma Clarke and her twin talent. I keep making this joke though, but
her two dragons.
Yeah, basically, she goes topless in the fucking Game of Thrones first season, and then she's like, I'm never gonna go topless again because I'm above that. And then she goes into Terminator Genesis, and people are like, she can't act. And she goes to lay a season right after Terminator Genesis, she's naked again. I got talent, see?
Well, she decided to go back to her roots. All two of them.
Oh boy.
So basically, from what I've seen, Sony is trying to pretend like
everything's fine.
The abysmal showings. Yeah. They're trying to put on a good front and say like, no, we're totally gonna make a Ghostbusters.
Remember that one scene? Remember that one scene from Titanic where the guy is like going around trying to reassure people that the boat's not sinking?
That's pretty much what it is. So
I was thinking of this one show where I can't remember what it was though, but like all these people are on a boat and the boat's sinking, and then you see like the captain like in a life raft lowering himself into the water, saying everything's fine, just don't worry about it.
Well, there's also that meme of the dog who's sitting like in a house that's on fire, and the next panel is a close-up of his face, and he's like, I'm fine with this, everything's okay. So that's pretty much Sony right now. But I mean, Sony, at this point, they need to be punished. They need to be humbled, because this is, between the Sony hacks and them, all the information that was released, and them butchering Spider-Man, and them endlessly supporting Adam Sandler, and just make a good movie. They've made some good movies, like mostly with David Fincher, to be honest with you, like The Social Network, mm-hmm. and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Yeah.
But
both of them scored by Trent Reznor.
Yeah, but again, David Fincher, talented people behind those movies.
Yes.
But then they're also constantly trying to compete with Marvel, and they're trying to jumpstart this massive cinematic universe with properties that don't need to have a massive cinematic universe like Ghostbusters. But more importantly, that because again, we're talking about Fembusters as though it were a movie, and it was a movie, but it was also a
Serbian film was a movie.
Yeah, so was Samurai Cop. But the point I'm trying to make is that the problem with Fembusters is not the movie itself; it's the politics behind it. So, do you think that all of this nonsense, all of this, oh, you don't like this movie because you're a sexist, or you don't like the Fantastic Four reboot because the Human Torch is black, do you think all of this is going to go away now, or is it going to get worse?
It'll get worse before it gets better. Always does. I think that it's not going to stop companies from trying to play cards to get people to shut up about a movie. Especially since, again, not everyone's seen it though, but the information was out there. And again, if you have shit trailers, and people are going to be like, oh, trailers usually historically show the best parts of the movie, and how come this is what they chose for this trailer? Oh yeah, we've seen the movie now. There was nothing else to put in the trailer. But I think that this is going to go on for a while. But I think people are kind of getting savvy to a lot of this. I'm hoping anyway.
Based on the abysmal ticket sales for Fembusters, Sony has completely failed in guilt-tripping people into watching this movie and supporting the quote-unquote cause of feminism. So I guess you're right. People are catching up to this, but
yeah. Well, again, I mean, I think if anything else, it's just gonna get people sick and tired of the politics behind these movies, and hopefully they'll see through all of the, oh my god, you guys are an ist if you don't watch this movie. I mean, I think it's insulting on so many levels to say, oh, if you don't watch this movie, you're an ist. And it's like, I'm not. Why don't you shut the fuck up? And you just gave me incentive to go to one of those kick-ass torrent clones and continue to, deprive you of, punish you, to continue punishing Sony. Because you said that Sony needs to be punished. Well, yeah, Nintendo's now worth more than Sony because of Pokemon Go. So, wah, wah. If nothing says punishment than that. Oof.
And I was gonna say, Nintendo did not even need to guilt trip people by calling them like speciesist if they
didn't play Pokemon Go.
Pokemon Go, yes.
Speaking of which, Pokemon Go with me, Katie, and the Fubu coming up next weekish. So we won't be completely negative on everything. We got some. Max won't be there, so it'll actually be a positive conversation.
Max is not there, so all of a sudden all of you are happy-go-lucky, completely positive.
Well, being on After Hours with you is kind of like trying to swim with a boat anchor, so... I'm joking. No, it's just that your talents lend to the more, oh my god, what the fuck did we just watch aspects of things. So,
well, in the case of Fembusters, it's completely justified.
Yes, I mean, if there's more cases of kids walking into traffic while playing Pokemon Go, you're more than welcome to join us.
Actually, that's what made me like Pokemon Go when it started.
It's a Darwin machine.
Yeah, pretty much. At first, I was annoyed with the game, but then I started reading all these articles about how basically natural selection was at work. Or rather, Pokemon Go was powering the natural selection machine, so I was like, you know what? Good job, Nintendo. I approve.
Yes, Nintendo approved. We give Nintendo high props for creating the ultimate Darwin machine.
Yeah. Okay, so do you have a good way to end this conversation? Because we've gone off the rails here.
Yeah, we'll end like Monty Python. Let's just walk away from the table. Boop, done.
Okay.
All right, bye.